Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Be patient therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. Take, my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath. But let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Elijah was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins.
Hello and welcome everybody to the next edition of our reading of the Divine Program of the World's History by Albert Close, today on this June 30th, 2019. And we're gathered together on a Sunday here across the Atlantic on the internet. And Jörg Listman's joining me from Belgium. Jörg, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bret, and welcome too.
Thanks. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
So grateful that you are there and you're willing to meet with me and do these sessions and continue on this journey into this very provocative history that I've never heard before. And I would imagine most of the listeners probably don't know a whole lot about it either. So we're just, ready and waiting to learn more.
Yeah, Albert Close often speaks of details of history that we haven't heard anywhere else before. That's true. Therefore, his book, The Divine Program of the World's History, is quite interesting. It is not only put together of other writings, as we know from Wordsworth and Birksworth and Birks Smith, or what's his name is, and Henry
Birks.
Guinness.
Yes.
Yeah, Birks, and Wordsworth and all these people, and Henry Guinness and all these guys.
Oh, yeah.
But he also put in a lot of his own research on that, and a lot of comments on his own. And I'm still under the impression of what we read yesterday, so that's why I'm going back to where we stopped yesterday in our reading. We were reading this quote on page 155 in the book, 121 in the PDF, that comes from Roman Catholic Cardinal Manning in 1874, where he said, where he stated almost prophetically, 40 years before the outbreak of the Great War, as they called World War I, there is only one solution of the difficulty. And speaking of the difficulty, of course, that is the losing of the temporal power for the Pope. A solution I fear impending, and that is the terrible scourge of continental war. A war which will exceed the horrors of any of the wars of the First Empire, speaking of the pagan Roman Empire. And it is my firm conviction that in spite of all obstacles, the Vicar of Jesus Christ will be put again in his own rightful place. But that day will not be until his adversaries shall have crushed each other with mutual destruction. That's what he says. That day will not be until his adversaries shall have crushed each other with mutual destruction. This last sentence is a giving away of Jesuitical war tactics. Let the enemies of the papacy kill each other. And the papacy is the controlling power in the end. The papacy has control of the right. The papacy has control of the left. The papacy has control of the thesis. The papacy has control of the antithesis. And therefore it will control the synthesis, the outcome. And even though the Pope was not present in the peace negotiations in France, Versailles in 1918-1919, which we will learn a little bit later in this reading here, the Pope was pulling the strings, or the Jesuits were pulling the strings from behind. Let me assure you that. The outcome was all in their favor from the beginning to the end. This war, Cardinal Manning said, should bring in the power, the temporal power of the Pope again that has been taken from him in 1870. Well, interesting is that we see a 20-year period that is very profound. We have the ending of the First World War in 1818, almost 1819. I probably think this depends on, because it was in November of that year, it depends whether you see it as a solar year or a lunar year or whatever, or calendar year. And then 20 years later, in February of 1929, you had the restoring of the wound, as we can rely from the Bible in Revelation chapter 13, when the wound was healed. With a Lateran treaty, Mussolini signed with the Vatican and gave the Vatican, or the Pope, back his temporal power in 1929, and another 10 years later, in 1939, you had the outbreak of the Second World War, which could be interpreted, if you see it through these lenses here, or through these glasses here like this, as a revenge of the Pope for that they have taken away his temporal power. And now he's revenging himself, using Germany to bloodshed even more blood over all of Europe, because people called the First World War the Great War and the mother of all wars and all kinds of great names, but of course they had no idea that the sword of Damocles was still hanging above their heads. Mm-hmm. And when it came down and the Second World War came, we have had a bloodshed as we have never seen before in the history of mankind, and never seen since. But let me assure you that the coming World War, or the World War that we are in right now, because, saying World War III will come is just a denial of the fact that we are in World War III, at least since the time of 9/11, 2001, but we have just not yet reached the hot phase of that war. And when the hot phase of that war is reached, bloodshed will be all around the world as never ever before it has been in mankind. And to give you an idea what's going to come, just visit the airport of Denver, take a look at the murals over there, take a look at the history the Jesuits give us in advance of what's going to humanity if, quote-unquote, humanity or mankind, better said, will not bow down to the supreme power of the Vicar of Christ who sits on his little golden throne in Rome, the seat of Babylon. But I know that you want to comment on this, Bret, so please.
Oh, yeah, well, I think it was in 2006, I was in the Denver airport, Jörg, and I had no idea what was around me. I didn't even really pay attention to it. I just was focused on something completely separate than that, And, these things are all around us all the time, and we don't notice them sometimes in different points in our lives. But, hey, that's life, Sometimes you just don't notice the elephant in the room until it starts making some noise, and then you notice it. It's kind of scary, actually, knowing that you're living amongst so much wickedness and it just surrounds you. But Jesus said not to be afraid of men. We're not to be afraid of these different devices. These are devices. Men are using devices. The Bible talks about this in the book of Proverbs. That we shouldn't be. Well, let's see. I'll quick look it up here. There's just a lot of different mechanisms that are set up to entangle us into a system that provokes us and makes us fight against each other. I mean, that's what's going on today. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious in politics, and that's why, I can't stand politics. I just, people wonder, well, why aren't you voting? Well, that's how these wars are fomented, aren't they, Jörg? Is through different political means. You have the papacy in there since 1929. What has changed since then? Not much.
No,
Not
just
much.
the power of the Pope has become increasingly more powerful.
It's on steroids now.
Especially since you have the signing of 179 nations on this earth of concordats with the Vatican in the meantime. That's a lot of work that was done, right?
Oh, it's even in the book of Job. In chapter 5, verse 12, he disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. That's a very interesting verse right there. That's the first place it appears in the Bible, devices. And then the last place is in 2 Corinthians. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, so we are to study Satan's devices. We are to know what they are, but we are not to partake in them.
As we are living in the world, but are not to be of this world.
That's right. That's right. So when the Bible talks about devices, it's not talking about cell phones. It's talking about, well, I mean, one could ignorantly think, well, yeah, those are devices. Yeah, they are.
It's like when they talk about the mark of the beast, they don't speak of an RFID chip.
No, that's right, Jörg. We talked about that yesterday in our Bible study. It is a spiritual mark. And that comes with discernment.
Yeah, because the Bible is a spiritual book.
Yes.
You have to take many things of the Bible absolutely literally. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. When Lot went out with his wife from Sodom and Gomorrah, and she turned because she couldn't let go. She turned into a pillar of salt. That you have to take absolutely literally.
Jörg, if you're under the influence of the Gnostics, you'll never take anything literally. That's the point here. Learning against learning. They've pushed this so far that, 99.9% of the people on the face of the earth possibly would never take the Bible literally right now.
No, but the point is, brother, that many people take too many things of the Bible literally. They don't have the discernment.
True.
They don't have the discernment to what to take spiritually or what to understand spiritually, and what to understand figuratively, or what to understand. How do we just say that?
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
They don't have the discernment for that.
No.
And that's the problem. And why don't they have that discernment? Well, because they don't read and study the Bible. Yeah, exactly.
And they're not studying independently of the institutional church.
Right.
When you allow that institutional church to tell you what to think, sorry to put it that way, but, there's nothing that ticks me off more than someone telling me how to think. I don't mind being corrected. I don't mind having someone, get in my face and say, hey, look, what are you talking about? I don't mind that. But when someone's telling you what to think, that's an insult. Right, Jörg?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much. And we're not here to insult anybody. We're just saying, hey, consider this, please. So anyway, look up devices in the Bible, study it for yourself. There's plenty of really good lessons to learn about Satan, Satan's for real, all right. The adversary's for real, all right. And he's trying to foment division between the body of Christ, and he succeeded throughout history. And here we are today in 2019, and it couldn't be worse. Could it? Could it be worse than what it already is? Maybe it could be.
Oh.
Maybe there's more that could happen.
Oh, brother, it can be so much worse than it is today.
Yeah.
There will come a time you will long for the time that you have right now. And see how wonderfully we had it, at this moment.
Yeah, that's right, Jörg. Yep, that's right.
But let's go back to the book here. I just think that's his last sentence, but the day will not be until his adversaries shall have crushed each other with mutual destruction. That this is really, for at least the people who studied this part a little bit, telling us that this is the Jesuitical tactic. Samuel C. Gibb, in his book, when he was writing this book on the King James Bible, I forgot the name right now. I read that on the Hour of the Truth for many parts.
That's right.
An Understandable History of the Bible. It is from Samuel C. Gibb. He said in his book, the papacy is like the lad that says to person number 1 when he wants to fight with person number 2, give me your coat, I'll hold it, and whatever the outcome is, I return the jackets, but in the meantime I will just hold the jackets. So I stand afar off, out of the action, and you and him do the fight, like in Rulers of Evil it is also mentioned, as Cassius says, you and him do the fighting and I'll take the honors, by the way. And that's the way that the papacy acts and reacts, It controls the power of nation A, it controls the power of nation B. Both of these nations are enemies in the core sense of the Vatican, of the papacy. So he stirs these two enemies instead of against him, against each other, and is the laughing third person of that tumult.
I got to add a little bit of fire to this, Jörg.
Yeah,
a little bit of fire is Matthew chapter 23, the first verses.
Okay.
The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat.
Just a second.
Therefore,
Matthew
all
23.
they bid you. Yes. Matthew 23. Go ahead, Jörg.
No, you can read. I just want to put it in picture.
Yes. So this is Jesus. He says, Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Now, we were talking about devices earlier, and we can look at what the scribes and Pharisees use as devices. And I think this has reference to this verse right here. Saying to the scribes and the Pharisees that sit in Moses' seat, all therefore whatsoever they bid you, observe. That observe and do. Okay, so when I first encountered this study, I was looking at the session, the joint session of Congress in 2015, when Pope Francis came to deliver his speech. And my jaw just hit the floor because he pointed up to that stupid little thing that device they got up there in Congress with Moses on it. And if you look at that thing, it looks like Moses got two little bumps on the top of his head. I mean, it's creepy looking, isn't it? Yeah, there it is. Look at those bumps on the top of his head. Why would they do that?
Like he is the devil, eh? Horns are coming out of his head.
Yes. Eh? 2 horns like a lamb, but spake as a dragon? Ring a bell?
Good point.
Yeah,
brother.
this
Good
wicked
point.
nation that they're fomenting here. I mean, this is I think Jörg, you even pointed out long time ago the laurel around this bust. They call it a bust, don't they? Mm-hmm. So that signifies Roman authority, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you said that, Jörg. I remember listening.
According to this bust, Moses was a Roman agent.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, everyone's trying to claim that, that what they believe is the truth. And, Satan likes to use the same argument, doesn't he? Satan wants you to believe that what he's doing is the truth. And that's what the scribes and Pharisees are all about today, aren't they? They're trying to utilize mankind, right, to do the bidding of their hierarchy, really. And they get it their way. They get it their way because no one takes the time to study it and figure out that these people are just usurping the power of Christ. And the people just sit around and, oh, it's so beautiful, it's so pretty, and look at the Pope, he is so kind and gentle, and they don't stop to think about the actual biblical facts now, do they? That's the sad part here. We've been deceived. This country, this nation, this great, quote-unquote, great nation, United States of America, and we're going to allow this usurper to come into our country and, just sit there and clap instead of, I just love that Ian Paisley, when he in the 80s, in the mid 80s, I think it was.
In 1984, he was in the European Parliament.
Yeah.
And he called Antichrist John Paul II out as Antichrist.
Yeah.
And
of course the whole theater erupted, didn't it?
Yeah. He was.
Let's call that a theater, because that's a Jesuitical theater of politics, man.
Yeah, he was shut down quite fast,
Oh yeah. Yeah, they tried to even block him from being in there. They didn't want him in there. They had all kinds of. Yeah.
They threw him out. They threw him out, actually.
Right. Exactly. Yep. So, politics is quite a show.
Yeah.
It could be that they wanted that to happen too. Who knows? I don't know.
Let's show this little video, Bret.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, please.
I just searched it here. I will just stop sharing screen and then starting it again, because I will share my sound of the computer too, and let's hear it.
The keynote speech of the Pope's 4-day French tour. A display of bronze nudes had been removed from the lobby for fear of offending the papal entourage. The Parliament's only Democratic Unionist MEP had given advance warning of his interruption. In the event, the Pope could barely begin his greeting.
First of all, permit me to say how much
The Pope remained calm, clearly anticipating the heckler in the back row. Mr. Paisley quoted a 16th century anti-papist slogan as furious Euro MPs threw papers at him in disgust, snatching the poster. Parliamentary President Lord Plum had no choice.
Mr. Paisley, I call you to order and I ask you to stop this disturbance.
There was another poster in his pocket for each one snatched away. The Pope, waiting with a text which spoke of Europe as the beacon of civilization, looked on with faint amusement.
Mr. Paisley, I now exclude you from this house.
Mr. Paisley claims he was punched and that he later received a personal apology from the head of security for failing to protect him. The poster stated simply John Paul II Antichrist, a reference to the view supported by Archbishop Cranmer in Reformation times.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it. Quite an interesting little video, huh?
Yes, it is. Yep, and that's the Pope in his political realm, and it continues to this day. Nothing's changed much.
No, it's only getting worse, actually.
Yeah, that's right. It's only going to get worse.
And the point is, Bret, let's go back to the reading here, because we didn't start yet, that people just do not understand that what Cardinal Manning is saying here in 1874, 40 years ahead of the outbreak of World War I, but that day will not be until his adversaries shall have crushed each other with mutual destruction. So people don't understand that the papacy uses the adversaries of himself to put him back on the throne again. And also what I find interesting is the phrasing, but that day will not. You know, that reminds me of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, when Paul says, but that day will not come until there come a falling away first. Huh? Anyway, let's go on and continue reading here.
Where was that again in this book? Where was it?
Page 155 in the book.
No, but the phrase you just quoted, where is that in?
2 Thessalonians 2.
No, but in the text here in front of us. Where is it?
What? The green last sentence here, but that day will not be until his adversaries shall have crushed each other with mutual destruction.
Oh, boy. Oh, thanks for pointing that out.
I'm sorry, I just didn't know what you meant.
I was a little slow to... Yeah. No. That's understandable.
You're very, very good up to date this morning. I'm surprised. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I woke up a little early and trying to stay on top of these things, Jörg. You know, it is important.
Yeah, that is. So let's continue reading now. Papal agents are, in 1916, the year of the publication of this book, flooding the press with suggestions that Pope Benedict have a seat on the peace conference when the time arrives, speaking the peace conference that will follow World War I. He hopes to have his temporal power restored. History tells us in 2019 he did not get a seat in Versailles, but don't be fooled. He had everything to do with the outcome of that quote-unquote peace treaty.
Mm-hmm.
The late Reverend Hugh Price Hughes spoke of the horror with which he heard Manning declare he would be willing to, quote, deluge the world of Europe with blood, unquote, in order to destroy the unity of the new Italy and recover the temporal power of the Pope. This is a quote taken from the Methodist Times, August 6, 1896. After hinting at the retribution that France deserved for her disregard of the papal claims, Antichrist Pope Pius X in 1906 exclaimed, quote, "Wait! I myself choose to wait. When we are able to ascertain the exact plans of our adversaries, we will in turn disclose ours. We are ready. They would have the humble vicar of the Lord Jesus Christ abstain from waiting before uttering the irrevocable words which he will have to utter. It will be all done little by little, but I promise you it will be done." Unquote. This is from the Daily Express, an interview with the Pope, published on February 1st, 1906. The very month the Boer War began, the Boer War is a war of South Africa that probably many people haven't even heard of. It is a conflict that is commonly referred to as the Boer War, since the first Boer War, which ran between December 1880 to March 1881, was a much smaller conflict. Boer, meaning farmer, is the common term for Afrikaans-speaking white South Africans descended from the Dutch East India Company's original settlers at the Cape of Good Hope. It is also known as the Second Anglo-Boer War among some South Africans. In Afrikaans, it may be called the Anglo-Boeroorlog, Anglo-Boer War, Tweede Boeroorlog, Second Boer War, Tweede Vrijheidsoorlog, Second Freedom War, or Engelse Oorlog, English War. In South Africa, it is officially called the South African War. So the Boers were settlers that came from Dutch, and they came with the East India or Dutch East India Trading Company. That, of course, is a Jesuitical company. And these Dutch Boers were persecuted Protestants out of the Netherlands, what most people over here in Europe just call Holland, but it's the Netherlands. Holland is just a province there. So the people went on their ships to India for trading, and of course they sailed around the coasts of Africa. And when they came to the Cape of Good Hope, which is in South Africa, they stepped off and they founded there a country that today is called South Africa. That is a Boer country. That country was led many, many years by fine Protestant people. But of course the Jesuits infiltrated that country, established slavery and, how do you call that? The racist laws and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then of course there also came this Boer wars, these farmer wars. But the Boers, the farmers, the actual Protestants, the original inhabitants, not original, because original were of course the blacks that lived there, but the original white settlers that came there were hated by Roman Catholics because they were Protestants. So the Boers are actually Protestants. And with the Boer Wars you had the trying of England in the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. That's where you have two Boer Wars, farmer wars there. The English High Church at that moment took over England again. Roman Catholicism took over England again at the turning of the 19th to the 20th century, and they also wanted to have a hold in South Africa because that was very important to them, and therefore they had to kill Protestantism in South Africa. And the more they went against the Boers, the farmers, the more they established Roman Catholicism in South Africa. And that's what you have today, because the people living today in South Africa, here and there of course are exceptions, are most of the time Catholics, Roman Catholics, as a result of the Boer Wars. And you had one in the end of the 19th century, 1880, 1881, as I just read to you, and now this other one in 1906, 1908, somewhere in this simony, 1906, I think, somewhere there. Yeah, you want to add something, Bret?
Well, you know, that's really interesting that this book is taking this turn into the Boers, because I remember there was something going on with a song that you two had written about the Boers. And I remember seeing some video on this, on exposing, you two for, being in support of this conflict that's going on. Of course, we know that Bono is been knighted, given knighthood.
Malta,
Yeah, I mean, it's disgusting. I can't stand that band anymore. Yuck.
I never could.
Oh, it's really odd, with that whole debacle here in the United States. They got so big and so popular, and now you know why.
Yeah.
Boy, another papal agent in plain sight.
That's what he is, yeah.
Yep.
So, the very month of the Boer War began, the Vatican press could not conceal its delight at this beginning of the possible downfall of Britain, meaning downfall of Protestant Britain, yeah? Roman Catholicism taking over again. The Times' quote-unquote own correspondent wrote from Rome, quote, "Since the outbreak of the Boer War, the Vatican press has given numerous proofs of bitter animosity towards England. The underlying idea seems to be the expectation that a Franco-Russo-German alliance," listen closely, the underlying idea seems to be the expectation that a Franco-Russo-German alliance, by intervening in favor of the Boers, will shatter the prestige of England, now and ever held to be the chief prop and mainstay of Protestantism, and, by depriving Italy of British support, facilitate the restoration of the temporal power of the Pope. This was written on November 8th of 1899. A Franco-Russo-German alliance, by intervening in favor of the Boers, mean supporting Protestantism. Yeah? That will shatter the prestige of England, which is just gone back to Catholicism, now and ever held to be the chief prop and mainstay of Protestantism, and, by depriving Italy of British support, facilitate the restoration of the temporal power of the Pope.
Boy, oh boy.
Interesting.
That's a doozy, isn't it?
Interesting history, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
These facts may throw some curious light on the action of the papacy in the present war, meaning the First World War, of course, remind you. In order that the German Navy Bill might be carried, the German Emperor consented to flood the aristocratic center of the Reichstag with Jesuits, who, in return for that privilege, allowed him to nominate the head of their society. This is real politics going on behind the scenes that you have never ever heard of.
That's
in order that the German Navy Bill might be carried. Now, what is the German Navy Bill? Germany was the country that introduced submarines in the First World War. And they were very, very successful. And there was a Navy Bill that I think, if I remember that correctly, you have to forgive me a little bit because I couldn't prepare everything of the reading here. But I remember that it was quote-unquote agreed on by the nations who foment war at the time, that they said that these underseers, these submarines, should only be used to sink ships after the people that are on those ships left those ships. Submarines would be used in warfare, all right, but not to kill sailors, but just to destroy the ships. And, well, the Germans didn't agree on that, and they just shot the ships, and many sailors sunk, and that was the beginning of a submarine war in the First World War. where Germany was quite powerful in the first time at least, but at the end was a little bit, in the end was getting the shorter end of it. And also you have that little bit, when you look into the future of the Second World War, you probably heard of the Enigma. That is that encryption machine that the Allies tried to decipher the messages the German military headquarters sent to their submarines. And those messages were encoded, they were encrypted. And they could not be decrypted without a special machine that was called the Enigma. And there was a whole hoax about that, how the Allies then got the Enigma and then could intervene in the messages the German military headquarters wrote to the submarines. And so all of a sudden the Allies knew beforehand what the submarines were doing and knew their whereabouts. And that's why all the German submarines, or most of them in the Second World War, were sunk by the Allies, because they got hold of that Enigma decrypting device. Yeah? So that's a whole interesting story for another time, or for doing your own research, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the book. So in order that the German Navy bill, and you can look that up for yourself, might be carried, the German Emperor consented to flood the aristocratic center of the Reichstag with Jesuits. And remember, we are still speaking of the time of the First World War. The Jesuits were officially banned from Germany in 1872 and only re-established in 1917. But the German Kaiser, the German Emperor, was a secret Jesuit admirer. He was a secret Roman Catholic, even though he was emperor of a quote-unquote Protestant country, right? So the German emperor consented to flood the aristocratic center of the Reichstag with Jesuits who, in return for that privilege, allowed him to nominate the head of their society. And they did. A German by birth, Francois Xavier Werns. He was to become the head of the Jesuit order. I think I have a picture of him here. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, here he is. I got all the important people on my computer.
Good.
This is Franz Xavier Werns. He was the 25th, I think, 25th General of the Society of Jesus. Today we have some like, I don't know, the 23rd, the 33rd or something? General of the Society, Arturo Sosa?
Yes, that's correct. 34? I think that is 32nd or 33rd, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in that regard. So Werns was the 25th, okay? Mm-hmm. And after Werns you had someone, I don't know his name, and then you had Halke Ledokowski, who was general until 1942. And later on, then you had Arupe, and then you had Peter Hans Kolvenbach and Adolfo Nicolas, and today you have Arturo Sosa, who by quote-unquote incident, of course, is a Venezuelan. How interesting that all of a sudden Venezuela pops up in world politics.
That's right.
In that important manner, right?
Yep.
So this Werns was the general of the Society of Jesus that the Jesuits gave the German emperor to pay back a favor they received. And so completely, the author continues, is the Vatican the depository of German and Austrian influence, that the present Pope, a pro-Belgian and Francophile by upbringing, found it necessary to join the imperial party, as 2/3 of the Vatican were on the imperial side. Hence, it is in vain that Cardinal Mercier of Belgium has sought redress at the Vatican for the horrors of Louvain. Rome shall perish, write that word, on the blood that she has spilled, perish guilty and abhorred, deep in ruin as in guilt. a quote from Cardinal Mercier of Louvain in Belgium. These facts are here mentioned out of their chronological order so that the readers can more intelligently trace the hand of Rome in fomenting this great war of 1914 through 1916, because we are still in the year of 1916, speaking of this war. See 1914 to 16 in the calendar for Rome's part in the Great War. Now we go back to 1880. Mr. W.E. Gladstone, a High Church Prime Minister of England, so that is a Roman Catholic, right? Appoints a Roman Catholic Viceroy of India, Lord Ripon, as Lord Ripon was a High Church pervert to the Church of Rome. 3 other Roman Catholics appointed as heads of great government departments. Widespread protests all over Britain. Reverend C.H. Spurgeon, Reverend Dr. Parker, and other great Christian leaders protest. Lord Ripon, on reaching India, attempts to suppress Protestant missionary and Salvation Army open-air meetings, as we can read in the Times of London, May 24th and June 21st of 1881. Then in 1881 the papal organ, or Jesuit organ, let's better say, Osservatore Romano, on May 6, 1881, commenting on the progress of Romanism in Britain, wrote, quote, "The Gladstone ministry will before long re-establish the relations which formerly existed between England and the Holy See." So this is, they are taking up again official diplomatic contacts that of course have been ended probably in the time of Henry VIII in the 16th century. That is comparable to what the United States of America did after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, when they cut all diplomatic contacts with the quote-unquote Holy See in 1867 because of the involvement of the Roman Catholic Church in the assassination of their president, Abraham Lincoln, and that was restored in 1984 by Ronald Reagan, who then sent the first American ambassador back to the quote-unquote Holy See. Wilson, I think was his name, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the first official recontacting of the Holy See between 1867 and 1984. But don't be fooled. Already President Wilson, who was president during the First World War, the time of the publishing of this book, had a secret envoy to the Vatican, and probably even presidents before him always had a deputant, is that the right word, I think, sent to the Vatican, a person of their personal trust, a personal trustee, a personal envoy of the President of the United States itself, who had the quote-unquote unofficial position of ambassador for the United States in the Vatican. Yeah? And here we read in England in 1881, the Gladstone ministry will before long re-establish the relations which formerly existed between England and the Holy See. Disclosures in after years revealed the fact that Mr. Gladstone had secret emissaries visiting the Pope. 1886. Mr. Gladstone, on again becoming Prime Minister, appoints a Roman Catholic First Lord of the Admiralty, a Roman Catholic Attorney General, a Roman Catholic Lord Chancellor of Ireland, and a Roman Catholic Solicitor General of Ireland. All important positions are taken by Roman Catholics. Let's read it again. Mr. Gladstone in 1886, on again becoming Prime Minister, appoints a Roman Catholic First Lord of the Admiralty. So that means that all of the Navy is in the hands of a Roman Catholic. He appoints a Roman Catholic Attorney General, so that means that the whole justice system is in control of a Roman Catholic. He appoints a Roman Catholic Lord Chancellor of Ireland, so that means that Ireland now is being led by a Roman Catholic. and the Roman Catholic Solicitor General of Ireland. And this is going to become very important because you have the time of the, I don't know, what's it called? It is this act that they put on there on Ireland. We're gonna read on that in the future. Yeah, I just lost the name a little bit. It will come up. It will come up in a few minutes when we continue reading. Yeah, the Home Rule Bill. Here it is. In April of this year, 1886, the first Home Rule Bill for Ireland was introduced in the British House of Commons. Now, what is the Home Rule Bill? Well, we spoke of that, I think, earlier in this book, as far as I remember. I thought that were even broadcasts where Daryl Eberhard was with us in the beginning of the reading of this book.
Yeah, that's right.
The Home Rule Bill was introduced in the British House of Commons. The promoters of this bill utterly ignored the fact that the persecuting spirit of the Church of Rome is and always will be the same, and that, listen, Home Rule will mean Rome rule in Ireland, in spite of every so-called safeguard. So, when the Prime Minister of England appoints a Roman Catholic Lord Chancellor of Ireland and a Roman Catholic Solicitor General of Ireland, and then they will establish the Home Rule Bill, which actually is a Rome Rule Bill, you see that the Roman Catholics and the Jesuits especially are not satisfied with a Roman Catholic England, but they want Ireland too. And Ireland has actually, historically, been Protestant. And that's why you still have the separation of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, well, one of the prime ministers was, as you just saw a few minutes ago in the video, Ian Paisley. He was a Protestant, even though probably in Freemasonry. He was a Protestant Prime Minister of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is the last Protestant bastion on that island because the Republic of Ireland, which is the bigger part of that country, is Roman Catholic. And it is Roman Catholic because the Pope sent out their Crusader families of the Calvert family, that you remember the Carols from John Carroll, Daniel Carroll and Charles Carroll, the quote-unquote founding fathers of the United States of America, which flew under the radar.
Right, the mercenary family, yeah.
That mercenary family was fighting the Crusades to bring Ireland back to Romanism in the in the Middle Ages, in the 13th, 14th, 15th century. Yeah? And to make sure, and 16th century, to make sure that Ireland becomes Roman Catholic again. And the last stronghold of Protestantism was and still is today Northern Ireland, with at major city, the capital city, Belfast.
Belfast, that's right.
So, you know, this is all very interesting politics, even going into the 21st century that we are in today. But now you understand why it is so important that this Mr. Gladstone, this Roman Catholic Prime Minister of England, appoints a Roman Catholic Lord Chancellor of Ireland and Solicitor General of Ireland, and then they are going to introduce the Home Rule Bill, which is actually a Rome Rule Bill, yeah? In spite of every so-called safeguard. Bloody Queen Mary promised quote-unquote safeguards, but swept them away when the throne had been secured. Reverend C.H. Spurgeon on May 27, 1886, wrote thus to the Times, quote, "The whole scheme is as full of danger as if it came from a madman," unquote. When the Great War broke out in 1914, the British people soon found out how disloyal Roman Catholic Ireland really was. When the news became rather alarming, the censor prevented the British public from knowing what really was going on in Ireland. Seditious papers were suppressed, many arrests were made, and many other disturbing incidents occurred. Only the records of the future will reveal who gave away the ever-changing routes of the steamships sunk off Ireland in the early months of the war. Spies undoubtedly kept submarines informed. Speaking of what I told you earlier, Germany, submarine war, First World War, remember? Why has the government of the day been so silent about the loyalty of Papal Ireland? Because like in Napoleon's day, she is ready to strike at Britain's heart the moment the opportunity is ripe. The government now see in 1916 that Rome never changes her character. Rome never changes her character. She only paints her face to suit the hour. If trouble and rebellion comes in Ireland, it is surely, as it surely will, it is to be hoped that the government will compel those to the Christian ministry who called so loudly for home rule or Rome rule to go and put down the trouble and thus see Romanism at home. There is nothing like object lessons to teach men truth. Men who have nothing to lose are ever ready to give away the liberties of others. Many educated Britons really see no significance in Sir Roger Casement's intrigues in Berlin. Now, Roger Casement is a person that I wanted to look up, and I did so on Wikipedia. And here is the whole Wikipedia article, and I give you, of course, the link in the description box of the video. And I mean, Bret will do that when he produces the video. And you can read on that by yourself. But this Casement is a person who was a, let's say, kind of a double agent. He worked for both sides. I haven't really time to read it all through. He was as you can see here, he was a sodomite. That means that he was a Roman Catholic, in my understanding. You can read through all this, but this Casement, he was working for the Roman Catholic agenda. And you can read that article for yourself. This would go much too long in the reading that we are doing here to include that into our reading that we are doing here today, because we already have come to 53 minutes, so we only have a few minutes left. So read that for yourself. Many educated Britons, the author said, really see no significance in Sir Roger Casement's intrigues in Berlin. Well, read that Wikipedia article and inform yourselves on other places on Roger Casement, and you will see that his intrigues had a very profound significance. The Romeward movement in the Church of England. We are speaking now of the year 1888, which is the wonderful blessed year in which Henry Grattan Guinness published his wonderful work, Romanism and the Reformation. But also in that year, the High Church party, having gained the ascendancy in the Church of England, placed the Roman Catholic reredos in St. Paul's Cathedral. You know what a reredos is?
An altar?
Yeah, it's an altar picture. Yeah, a picture on the altar. Yeah, something that is Roman Catholic. So I looked it up because I didn't know what it was, and it was a strange word to me, and I think that maybe many people are not familiar with what
there's a foldout
is.
in the back of this book, Jörg. You know, when you go through the PDF, you'll see a bunch of cartoons in the back, and in the cartoons there is the picture of the how do you pronounce that again? A reredos. Reredos.
Yeah.
Yep, it's in here.
On what page is that? I can go there and show the people.
It's at the I'd have to look it up in the PDF. It's almost at the very, very back, the very end of the PDF.
Okay, let's see.
The very, very end of the PDF.
Let's go there.
Yeah, let's do it quick. Okay, go back a few pages. Couple more. Right here. That's it.
The Romeward movement.
Yep, does that say 1888 at the top?
Roman Catholic reredos or altarpiece placed in St. Paul's Cathedral, London by the High Church party in 1888. Note the Roman Catholic figure of Christ on the cross, the Roman Catholic inscription INRI, which stands for Iustum Neca Regis Impius. It is just to kill and extirpate heretical kings and rulers. Also the altar candles and the cross. A screen is erected in front of the whole, just as in a Roman Catholic cathedral. So, here you see Jesus Christ. Let's just go a little bit bigger. Then you can see that more easy. This is the reredos that was put there by the High Church, means the upcoming Roman Catholic Church in England in 1888. Here you have the Jesus figure on the cross, INRI, written above it. And they of course tell you, by the way, do you see here the all-seeing eye? Here?
No, I don't.
The blue.
Really? Wow.
Here where I make the blue. Don't you see that, Bret?
Yeah. I don't, actually.
Here.
Oh, wow, it is. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
The all-seeing eye. Yeah? So when, of course, in reality, over Jesus' cross, they hang a board that with inscription in 3 languages that stated Jesus Christ, King of the Jews, in Latin, in Hebrew, and in Greek. There was no plague of INRI, which quote-unquote stands for Jesus, King of the Jews. It stands for Iustus Neca Regis Impius, which the meaning is, it is just to kill and extirpate heretical kings and rulers, which is the motto of the Jesuit order. Okay, so we've shown this picture. I think, and this is exactly what this seems to be to me a good moment to end the reading. What do you think?
Sounds good, Jörg. And you know, that's interesting. You know, when you scroll down to the bottom there, you can see it was the artist who did this is D. Newhouse, 1913. And I just thought that's interesting because there is another Newhouse more recently in recent times who was stating very profound and Tom Fress,
Bishop Newhouse on EWTN.
Yes, Bishop, yes, exactly. And we covered that. Tom covered that in Inquisition Update, and I remember that very vividly. I made a video of it. Actually, the first video that I made of a reading that Tom Fress did on Inquisition Update, because that just really stuck out to me like a sore thumb. You know, this Newhouse telling everyone that you have no right
to choose your religion, right?
Yes.
That's what he said. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Okay, brother. I'm done with my reading for today, I think. I thank you very much for your accompanying me. And
oh, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate the reading, Jörg. And very fascinating history we got going here. You know, and it's really interesting how this is all tying together, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I've never heard anything like this before, ever.
Untying the knots we are, aren't we?
Yes. We're giving the perspective that Albert Close wanted to give us at the time of the First World War, the Great War.
With the help of the time passed by in the meantime, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yep. So really good to keep this going. And we made some good progress today. And thanks for joining us, everybody. I look forward to seeing your comments. And we'll catch up with you next time. God bless, and bye-bye for now.
From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even of your lusts that war in your members? Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, Know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Do ye think that the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Be afflicted, and mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to heaviness. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. Speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother, and judgeth his brother, speaketh evil of the law, and judgeth the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judgest another? Go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow, we will go into such a city, and continue there a year, and buy, and sell, and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor, that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now ye rejoice in your boastings. All such rejoicing is evil. Therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire.